In this edition of Locked On Capitals, the players are starting to come into DC. We'll do a preview on the Capitals. And Dylan Strome has a brother that plays in Hershey now. Let's talk about all of that and more next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, and I want to thank you for making this your first listen or view of the day. Yes, this podcast also comes in video form, so head on over to YouTube and check it out. And when you're on YouTube, make sure and hit that subscribe button. And if you like the videos, give it a thumbs up. It really helps grow the channel. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So in this episode, training camp is coming. It's coming at the end of this month, and there is so much excitement surrounding this team. I am so excited. The Washington Capitals went out and got some big-name players, and Darcy Kuemper and Charlie Lindgren, Dylan Strome. There's so many to count on, and how are they all going to blend in with this team? You know, on paper, it looks like it is a winning combination, but how will they actually play in real time? I guess that remains to be seen. And just some news to start off around the team here. It's almost that time. Biggest pre-camp skate yet this morning. Among the NHLers, Carlson, Kuznetsov, Orlov, Oshie, Mantha, Brown, Strome, Hagelin, Jensen, Dowd, Hathaway, Johansson, Lindgren, Snively, Axel Janssen, Fjellby, and Protas. Lots of prospects here, too. So it is definitely ramping up towards hockey season. Are you guys excited? I'm excited about it. The Washington Capitals, who had another first-round exit this past year, I am optimistic this season that they are going to be able to do bigger and better things. And I do think that that is what is in their future. Listen, this last season, they suffered from inconsistency in net all last season with Ilya Samsonov and Vitek Vanacek. And what did Mac do? He went out and signed the biggest name on the market in the form of Darcy Kuemper and then his backup, Charlie Lindgren. So he had, said enough with the old goaltending tandem and all about the new. So I am excited to see what it is going to end up shaking out to be as the end of the month approaches. And we will also be going back to 5 shows a week. So that's exciting as well. So inside look at the Washington Capitals. The Washington Capitals head into training camp acutely aware that they haven't won a Stanley Cup playoff series in the 4 seasons since winning the Cup in 2018. They're also cognizant that they won't be able to change that narrative until the playoffs begin in April. We know it. Our fan base knows it, and the management knows it from inside the locker room last year. We didn't get it done, and we have to do it, Coach Peter Laviolette said. I think the most important thing is that we're ready to win a game. I like to keep things in perspective and on point with where you are currently, and I think when you get to that point at the end of the year, you can change your tune and change your focus. And it is completely different hockey in the postseason. You know, we've all seen it. I mean, you can even see with the Washington Capitals, players that didn't really show up during the season, all of a sudden, get propelled into another gear. If you want to take a look at a good case in point, take a look at Anthony Mantha. He was one of the guys out there that really kind of rose to the challenge, and they needed him to do that. So, I hope that the Capitals can get that kind of production again because they're really going to need it, because this era, this is why we picked up Dylan Strome and Connor Brown and Darcy Kuemper, was to start Cups, to make it past the first round and make a push into the playoffs. We want to win another Stanley Cup in this Alex Ovechkin era. I do think it's possible, but they're ever going to need everyone pulling on the focus after losing Florida Panthers in 6 games in the best of 7 Eastern Conference first round last season was an upgrade around the remaining championship core of forwards Alex Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Wilson, Oshie, Eller, Carlson, and Orlov. But they're going to need more. So what did Washington do? Washington revamped its goaltending, signed unrestricted free agents Darcy Kuemper and Charlie Lindgren to replace Samsonov and Vanacek, who signed with the Devils, and Samsonov, who signed with the Maple Leafs. So that was a statement thing to do. It would have been easy for the Capitals to say, you know what, I'm going to hang on to Vanacek or I'm going to hang on to Samsonov. We don't need to shake things up too much. But Brian Maclellan and everyone knew that they were not getting the results that, was required. Another first round exit. A lot of people around the league I talked to, they're saying, the Capitals won a Stanley Cup in 2018, but they got lucky. And that is not the kind of thing that I want to hear. I don't think that the Capitals got lucky. I think that it was a great core of players and, a great coach. And I do think that the Washington Capitals still, for the most part, have that same nucleus, that same identity that's going to say, we can do it. And as long as Alex Ovechkin is on the Washington Capitals, I will not count them out. He just has that ability to win. He has that magnetism, that kind of draws these players to this team. And I am hopeful going forward. With Backstrom out indefinitely while recovering from resurfacing surgery on his hip, and Wilson not expected back before December after having surgery to repair a torn anterior ligament in the left knee, the Capitals added forward Dylan Strome and Connor Brown. That was in a trade with the Senators there to ostensibly fill in those roles. That is what it is on paper. Dylan Strome is going to fill in at second line center for Nick Backstrom. Connor Brown is ostensibly going to fill in for Tom Wilson on the top line right wing. Now, when I say ostensibly, that means, probably, but maybe not actually. There is Anthony Mantha and there's TJ Oshie. There are players out there that are going to vie for those positions. They are going to push to get those positions. So, Connor Brown, on paper, it looks like he could be the top line right wing. How does that actually fit in actuality? I guess that remains to be seen. And Dylan Strome, the one really good thing about Dylan is I think that I don't think that the Capitals had enough in-house to fill that second line center of Nick Backstrom. You could have said, well, you have Connor Brown and you have these, Connor McMichael, you have these other players. But honestly, I don't think, that is, talking about jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire for Connor McMichael. He had kind of a limited role last year. So for him to take on second line would have a big responsibility. But, I would love to be proven wrong here. Say Connor McMichael, really steps up and outshines Dylan Strome and, because Dylan Strome can play wing as well, then that's fine, But honestly, on paper, this is the direction in which we are trending. Brown, who had 39 points, 10 goals, 29 assists, and 64 games with Ottawa last season, could sub for Wilson at right wing, like I talked about on the top line with Ovi and Kuzi. Strome, who signed a one-year, $3.5 million contract July 14th, will be among the candidates to fill in for Backstrom as the second line center. The Capitals survived when Backstrom missed the first 28 games last season because of the hip, with rookies Connor McMichael, Alexi Protas, and Hendrix Lapierre helped to fill the void. Strome, who had 48 points, NHL career high, 22 goals, 26 assists, and 69 regular season games with Chicago, the Blackhawks last season, provides a more experienced option this season. The 25-year-old can play wing, giving Peter Laviolette flexibility with his lineup. And that is a great position to be in. And that's what you're seeing more with some of these younger players. And I guess Strome isn't, ultra young like Hendrix Lapierre, but they're kind of more of a Swiss Army knife. They're going to play where you need them to play. And, I think that Dylan Strome, because at some point I do expect Backstrom to come back. In what capacity, I guess that remains to be seen, but I do see him coming back. It is good that they have that flexibility out there. And I do, in time, I do want to see the McMichael and Protas and Lapierre. I do want to see them, integrated into this team, but I want to do it at the right pace. I don't want, just a fire sale where you rip it down to the studs and just plug in all these young players. So I think the Capitals are doing it the right way. Replacing Nick last year was really tough, Laviolette said. We were able to get it done and hold the fort down until Nick got back. But to me, to have the depth of the guys that we signed this summer, especially where Strome plays center, and to know they're adding to the depth of the young players, I feel like it puts us in a good spot to attack this season. And Let me just say that there are already a lot of naysayers out there that are already writing off this Capitals team, saying that they're too old and, the rock the red era, that's an outdated thing. I agree with Peter Laviolette's assessment there. I do think that this team is in a good position to do great things this year and let the naysayers come. I would love nothing more than to prove them wrong because I do think that they have the firepower and they solidified their greatest need. What was that? Net minding. Darcy Kuemper, Charlie Lindgren, two great goalies, I think will really help out the Capitals in their push to make it to the postseason, beyond the first round. Kuemper, who was 37-12-4 with a 2.54 goals against average and a .921 save percentage in 5 shutouts and 57 regular season games last season with Colorado, and a 10-4 record with a 2.57 goals against and a .902 save percentage and 1 shutout in 16 playoff games. The way he's played the last 5 or 6 years in the league and the fact that he won a Stanley Cup, now he's a Stanley Cup champion, Laviolette said, I think his leadership and his presence in net is going to be noticeable. And again, I agree with that assessment. I would have had a little bit more doubt about this team going into this season if it would have still been Vanacek and Samsonov. And I think that everyone listening to this podcast or watching it would have felt the same way. The Capitals have been a consistent playoff team, qualifying in 8 straight seasons in 14 of the past 15. Yeah, haters, listen to that. That is some really solid stats. Although the core led by Ovechkin turns 37 on September 17th, is getting older, Kuemper believes Washington's championship window remains open. Obviously, it's the team that won before, and it's a veteran group that knows how to win, Kuemper said. That's what I was looking for, another chance to go win. I think this is the place where I want to be. This was in a story in NHL.com. I do agree with that assessment. I do think that the Capitals went out and they did the right things on paper. In actuality, is what's going to be the case? We can't look at that. All we have to do is have a positive attitude going forward. All right, so after the break here, we are going to continue to talk about the Washington Capitals and the players that are trickling in. Dylan Strome will talk about his role with the team, and also his brother, Dylan Strome's brother, signed with the Capitals, well, the AHL affiliate, that is. We'll talk about that after the break. BetOnline.net is the number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all of the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week's games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. And guys, if you haven't done this, football season starts now. Baseball's going on. Hockey's going to be starting real soon. That is why you need to go to Bet Online. It makes watching the games that much more exciting. So go to Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, welcome back to this edition of Locked On Capitals, where it's your team every day. In this episode, we are talking about the future Capitals this upcoming season and some players that are already trickling into DC. In this next article, it was in Washington Hockey. Now they're talking about how the Bears signed Matthew Strome, brother of Capitals Dylan, to an AHL deal. And that is just, I'm not too aware of him, but, obviously if the Bears are signing him, there is some potential there. The Washington Capitals will now have 2 Strome brothers involved in the organization as the team's AHL affiliate Hershey Bears inked Matthew Strome to a 1-year AHL deal on Thursday. Strome is the younger brother of new Capitals forward Dylan Strome. They are both also related to Ryan Strome, the eldest of 3. All the brothers have now signed with new clubs this offseason as Dylan inked a 1-year, $3.5 million deal with Washington, and Ryan signed a 5-year, $25 million contract in Anaheim. And it kind of reminds me of the Stahl brothers out there. It seems like, what's in the drinking water where these guys live that they all can, produce NHL quality players, or I guess the one brothers in the AHL. Let's call them professional hockey players. Matthew went to the Philadelphia Flyers in the 4th round of the 2017 NHL draft and inked a 3-year deal, an entry-level deal with the club in 2018. His deal expired this summer, and after not receiving a qualifying offer, he hit free agency The 6'4", 210-pound winger is a gritty forward who battles hard at both ends to get those dirty, high-danger areas. Combine that with quick hands and a good shot and a high hockey IQ. Matthew provides a lot when it comes to taking care of the puck and being an asset on special teams. However, he still has some work to do with skating, and that is why he is in the AHL right now, not the NHL. But that is why those guys are down there, is to kind of marinate, if you will, and kind of just and to improve your game, I guess, at the end of the day. The 23-year-old spent the majority of the season with the Flyers' AHL affiliate, Lehigh Valley Phantoms, where he dished 5 goals and 11 assists in 63 games. He also played in 6 ECHL games with the Reading Royals, where he had 3 goals and 4 assists. And, that's what I'm talking about, getting this pipeline going. At some point, this current lineup, the Rock the Red era, if you will, is going to retire. Alex Ovechkin and Nick Backstrom and Oshie Carlson, all these older players are going to hang up their skates. It is good to replenish the pond, if you will, with these younger players. In a total of 91 AHL games, Strome has collected 8 goals and 15 assists for 23 points, and in 57 total ECHL games, he has 34 points. Matthew will add a lot to the Bears, who are deep and have several top Capitals prospects expected to get playing time, including Hendrix Lapierre and Vincent Ayaro. Hendrix Lapierre, I would consider Hendrix the crown jewel of the Washington Capitals organization as far as their depth or their pipeline or their AHL affiliate. We saw a brief glimpse of him this last season, and in that brief glimpse, I think that he played very well. Is he going to be ready for the Capitals this season? I don't think so. He played in juniors primarily last year. I do think that he is ready for the Hershey Bears. And if for some reason when he's playing in Hershey and he just jumps off the page and say for some reason the Capitals are struggling in a position, then call him up and give him his opportunity, because it's going to happen sooner or later. Like I say, on paper, it looks like the Capitals are in a great position to do big things. In actuality, is that going to be the case? I guess that remains to be seen. I am optimistic, and I am looking forward to this next season here going forward. That's what I'm looking for. More production out of this team going forward. All right, so after the break, we are going to continue to talk about the Capitals, and this time, Dylan Strome. What role will he take with the team? We'll talk about that next. All right, welcome back to this edition of Locked On Capitals, where it's your team every day. In this edition, we are talking about the Capitals in the upcoming season and all the excitement that surrounds it. This was a story in Washington Hockey Now. They were talking about how Capitals, Strome, Brown arrive in D.C., join informal skates. And what better way to endear yourself to your new teammates to say, I'm showing up early. I'm showing up with the rest of you guys. Let's form a bond. Let's form a cohesive unit and go forward. And I think that, I'm excited to see what Strome and Connor Brown bring to this team. They both have really great track records. I do not know why the Blackhawks wanted to part with Dylan Strome. I think that is a bit of a dumpster fire out there that is burning out of control, but that's not what I'm worried about. Let's worry about this Capitals team. With training camp quickly approaching, the Washington Capitals saw 2 of their newest offseason additions join the group for informal skates on Wednesday. Dylan Strome and Connor Brown took the ice with Lars Eller, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Carl Hagelin, and more as the Capitals continued their offseason workouts ahead of the 22-23 season. This is the first time Strome and Brown are in full Capitals gear and are skating at MedStar Capitals Ice Complex. It's always going to be Kettler to me. It just is. Strome signed a 1-year, $3.5 million contract with the Capitals in free agency. The team also acquired Connor Brown from Ottawa at the start of the season. And talk about just swinging for the fences. Brian Maclellan, who got a lot of grief, he got some grief from me as well. He really went out there and did everything that he could possibly do to solidify this lineup. Net minding, he filled in the gap for Backstrom and Wilson. Hats off and great job. Strome is coming off a strong season in Chicago that saw him dish a career-high 22 goals and 26 assists in 48 points in 69 games. He is hoping that he can find consistency in the district. He also wants to be more reliable at both ends of the ice. And don't we all? I think over the last couple of years, I feel like I've turned into a little bit more reliable than maybe I was at the beginning of my career defensively. So I think I was put into some situations last year where I'd take some faceoffs in the defensive zone at key times in games, and my faceoff numbers got better last season and looking to improve on that this year. So really excited about that. Obviously, I like to produce offense, like to help on the power play where that may be. Usually it's in front of the net or down low. I think that's where I'm at my best. And that's what I hear about him is he likes to get those dirty goals, those ones right in front of the net. Sometimes you see TJ Oshie getting those kind of goals. So to add more players of that ilk to this team is only a positive. Brown, who had 10 goals and 29 assists in 64 games with Ottawa in 21-22, wants to bring a little bit of everything to the Capitals. I always thought I was a skilled forward, and I see myself as that, but I remember my junior coach telling me really to hone in on being a good penalty killer and making that something I can take pride in. And ever since then, I really have, Brown said. I try to have a knack for stealing pucks. I just really enjoy penalty killing. Defensively, as a forward, I steal pucks and play tenacious. I like to consider myself as doing a little bit of everything, so I think I can help out on the second unit, and everything I can do, every little thing, I will try to bring it all. It's tough to pinpoint out there. And, I would just say for Connor Brown, go out there and play your brand of hockey. I think, your resume speaks for itself. And I think that he is going to do a great job. Is he going to be able to fill in for a role of a Tom Wilson? No. Tom Wilson is a four-leaf clover. He is a big frame. He's not afraid of mixing it up. He's not afraid of getting in your face and throwing down. But what separates him from a goon, let's say, is that he can also score goals. He was in the top 3 in goals on the team. Most goons, in quotes there, don't score 20 plus goals. So Connor Brown has some big shoes to fill. And, it is kind of just a dress rehearsal, a trial, if you will, to see how these players will fit into those roles. Because if some reason Connor Brown doesn't fill the role, he doesn't fit the bill of a top line right wing, then insert Anthony Mantha or Oshie or someone like that that has the flexibility to play that position, because this is a win now mode. Make no mistake about it. This isn't, a New York Rangers team that, is kind of young and just kind of marinating and working its way to the surface. No, this is win now mode. There are a lot of players on this Capitals team that are 30 plus, the wrong side of 30, as they say. This is win now mode. This is capturing the most wins you possibly can in the Alex Ovechkin era. We want to see Alex Ovechkin beat Wayne Gretzky. I think we all do. But at the end of the day, that is important, of course. But what we want is the Capitals to win another cup, at least one cup in this era with Alex Ovechkin on board. And if not that, to even just make it past the first round. Anything less than a first round exit is going to seem like a failure. They need to move past that. They need to make a big push into the playoffs or win that Stanley Cup, right? Because we've all choked on that failure pill with this team the last several years. Let's turn it around and make it a Capitals season, one to remember. Thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you a daily 30-minute podcast on all NHL things all year long. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute podcast. So once again, thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals. I am really getting excited for the start of hockey season later this month, where it's training camps, and then the start of the season next month. I do think it is going to be a great opportunity to see, are these young players, are they really going to be able to step up and own this team and make the big moves out there? I guess we'll find out. All right, once again, thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, where it's your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.